Welcome to today's First Chesapeake Chat session. I'm Victoria Mulvihill, a First Chesapeake alumni, and I'm here to introduce the First Chesapeake Chat sponsored by Newport News Shipbuilding. I would like to thank the session sponsor, Canon, for making this chat possible. Just some housekeeping, we'll let the speaker present and then open up for discussion questions later on if there is time. But feel free to put questions in the comments throughout the chat, and we'll try to get to them all. The session today is Cool Jobs. Juan, an iSensor engineer at Analog Devices, an FTA and contributor to the FRC KOP, and I will now pass it over to Juan to introduce himself.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Juan, as Victoria just mentioned. I'm actually, I guess, a longtime firster, and kind of nearby. I'm actually in North Carolina, so not quite in Virginia, but I'm also one of your FTAs. I was actually going to be the Portsmouth FTA this year, but next year. There's always next year. As Victoria mentioned, I'm also a product engineer at Analog Devices, and I specifically work on inertial sensors, IMUs. So all the IMUs that everybody's used to using on their robots. That's what I get to do for reals. It's a lot of fun. It works really well with FIRST as well because you end up with a kind of a really nice overlap on what I do for work and what I do for FRC, and it makes a lot of that a lot of fun. I actually, in addition to all of the IMU stuff and everything else, and what I do at Analog Devices, my wife and I, we actually both are kit of parts coordinators on behalf of Analog Devices for FIRST. So we put together a lot of the sensors and the tutorials and the code and do all the paperwork on the back end to get teams the sensors that they need. A lot of the stuff that we do before the season, I guess we usually start around July, August. I think FIRST would like us to start earlier, but we do a lot of that prep work in order to get the boards manufactured, gets the parts tested, get everything packaged, get everything shipped to FIRST or to Yandy Mark, and it's a whole process. I guess a lot of teams, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the sensors that we give out actually have to go through our testing facility here in Greensboro, North Carolina. Oh, I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. A lot of the sensors and everything, actually, we, either myself or I've actually had mentors and other teams all helping us test all of these parts to get them to you guys. But it's a lot of fun because it's something that definitely benefits teams all over the world, and it's something really cool and that we've done for a couple of years. I'm actually, in addition to all of that, I'm also a 12-year FRC mentor veteran. I'm actually not an alumni. So I'm not an alumni. I actually started mentoring back when I was in college in 2008. So this is my 12th year as a mentor in FRC, and I think I've been FTAing for 5 years or something. So it's a lot of fun, definitely a lot of experience. But I'm really glad to do it, and I'm really glad that that teams offer the feedback that they do, and they give us the opportunity to kind of adjust what we offer and what we document and everything else to help teams, right? Because ultimately that's what it's about, right? Getting everybody up to speed so that everybody can get their autonomous routines and make it lots of fun. There's I have a couple pictures and stuff that I kind of wanted to show off. There's a lot of, like I mentioned, a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and a lot of what I do at Analog Devices involves actually making the IMUs. So whenever we're developing something, it's my job as a product engineer to go in and really understand what the part is doing. So like if you ever look at a data sheet or anything else, if anybody loves to see data sheets, I actually had a big hand in putting together a lot of the data for them. So the graphs, the plots, all the numbers, all that stuff. Eventually at some point somewhere, it was me or one or two of my technicians, like literally spinning these sensors on a table on a motor, or like hitting them with a hammer, or just doing really goofy things to them, because they measure shock and they measure rotation, and you gotta shock them and rotate them. Definitely have broken a fair share of sensors in my day. So, but it's fun. So these pictures here, if you look at the picture on the right, is actually, that is the 2019-2020 season donation. That was actually like right before they got put in boxes and sent to our manufacturer to get put on circuit board. So that is, if you have one of these sensors from this year, it's in that picture somewhere. The picture in the middle is actually a prototype circuit board that I put together that shows kind of the sensor on the RoboRio. So it's, at some point we have to come up with prototypes and make sure they fit and make sure that the software is there. And it's a process. And the picture on the left is basically both of the big sensor boards, the IMU sensor boards that we put together. It's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work. And whenever, I know what really is awesome for me is like when teams come up and offer like feedback, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, we absolutely love it. Definitely, in fact, these boards are a product of a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from teams. This year we're hoping to get software put together and a lot of documentation put together so anybody can just jump in the 2021 season and just like make their autonomous routines better. Now, FRC is a part of what I do. These same sensors that you see here, they're used in like all kinds of stuff, anywhere from surgical robots to tractors, to combines, to trucks, to quadcopters, to UAVs, to airplanes, to like all kinds of stuff uses these sensors. They go into so many applications. And maybe that's an idea. Maybe in the future, I can go in and put together and give a talk on how gyros work and how accelerometers work and that kind of stuff. So I think that'd be pretty cool. What do you think, Victoria?
I think that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, and and it's always a lot of fun because to go to championship and talk about this stuff, because exactly that, like a lot of teams love this info, right? And of course there are a lot of myths about how gyros work and how accelerometers work and everything. And I'd love to like go in and just kind of talk to teams about it. I actually think that it'd be pretty cool to show everybody that. I have a couple more pictures, but I don't think we have any questions. Do you have any questions, Victoria?
I'm just trying to take it all in right now. No questions yet from the audience, but I just have to say that for me, it's I was in the first robotics program, and now I'm in an engineering program in college, and so constantly learning things is what we love to see. And so when you get new technologies or just a better understanding of something, it makes the biggest difference in an understanding of how the world works almost. Just a quick question though, is what made you get involved with FIRST in the first place, since you weren't an alumni of the program?
So that's a very good question, because like you said, I'm not an alumni. So I grew up in a southern Texas town on the border with Mexico. So hablo español. I'm actually one of two FTAs that are not from Mexico but speak Spanish. Because it was basically in the middle of nowhere. I got into FIRST when I was in college. I was a sophomore at Texas Tech University, and I happened to see I was at a demo, like a demos work for mentors and for students. They definitely work. I saw, just a robot driving around. It was the, oh geez, it was a 2018 robot. That's what it was. Sorry, 2008 robot. I'm sorry, I'm off by 10 years. I'm off by 10 years.
It's okay. It's quarantine. No time makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I just saw this robot. It was, it was awesome. The robot that I had seen was shooting these giant yoga balls. I think it was like 2 stories. The thing was definitely not safe. That robot was not safe at all. But it was so cool. And I went and I talked to the students that were working on it, and they were also mentors of a local high school team. But as it turns out, those mentors, they were, because at the time, 2008, there weren't a lot of teams yet. The lead mentor on 1817, which was the robotics team, she actually she had been a student on 118 on the Robonauts. So I ended up, just getting in touch with them, and becoming friends and that kind of thing, and then just was invited to come and mentor, and the rest is history, right? Mentored with them. Then I moved on to, geez, what was it? 3730, and then 3005, and then I moved to North Carolina, and now 2655. So that's kind of the 12 years in the making there. I just got involved because it was fun. It was cool. At the time, I was a sophomore in college, looking for fun and cool things to entertain myself with, and here we are.
I think that's the beauty of FIRST, and that you get that your toes wet in the water, and then you just do that straight nose dive into it, because it's such an interesting and just enlightening program. Another question that I was thought of is what kind of steps throughout your education helped you to get to this point, or just what kind of events in your life I want to work on robotics, sensory things, and technology for the rest of my life?
Well, actually, like, seriously, even though I was only a mentor, FIRST had a lot to do with me actually becoming an engineer. Like, my sophomore year of college, you're kind of getting through some of the weed out courses, that kind of thing. And, I wasn't, at the time I was, wavering a little bit and didn't really know whether I really wanted to go through with it. And calculus 2, and then I have to take calculus 3, and then I got to take 2 differential equations classes. Why would I want to do that? But getting to actually do some of the practical stuff with the students, and talk about stuff, and learn how a lot of this stuff works. I loved it, right? There was definitely a time, like I said, sophomore, junior year, where I just did not feel like college was for me, and FIRST actually pulled me, out of that mindset, and it gave me a drive to say, nope, we're going to finish this. You're going to keep going. So yeah, I mean, from then on, I worked, I definitely I graduated from Texas Tech, ended up working at Texas Instruments, and that's actually where I learned about a lot of the little, a lot of the sensors and everything, and a lot of the MEMS, the tiny structures that make the sensors work. And eventually, eventually after getting through a lot of that, I ended up working with sensors. Actually, if we want to pull up the next set of pictures, some of the that's on my end. There we go. So some of the stuff that we did, and some of the IMUs that we put together, like I mentioned, have a lot of those tiny structures in them, even though the IMUs look pretty big. What's cool about it is, you wouldn't really think about how these things move, and that's what I was thinking about. Possibly moving, possibly having maybe another session or a class on it. just because, you know, these sensors are really cool. You know, the sensors that I'm showing here were also made for the kit of parts, but I mean, these sensors in particular are used in a lot of like very like asset tracking, you know, vehicle tracking applications. I mean, like crazy heavy robot applications, you know, autonomous tractors, and you know, I think, you know, companies are using them in warehouses. It's a lot of fun. Um, you know, I think Kristen, Kristen, my wife, actually works in the aerospace and defense group, and we were joking that, yeah, I mean, eventually at some point these sensors might actually make it to Mars. Who knows? Maybe. I don't know. It'd be fun. There's a list of things that we need to test first, and you know, we need to blast them with radiation for a while, but yeah, we'll see. You know, and aside from all the sensor stuff and everything else, I will say that what's kind of kept me going and first, and what makes it a lot of fun, is a lot of the people and everybody else that you get to meet and like build a relationship with, right? Um, there's, you know, these are all, you know, just a couple of pictures that I was able to dig up, like you know, just being able to see a lot of what goes on at championship, at the district events, at regional events. You know, in the on the top, obviously that's Minute Maid Park, with the crowd and everybody kind of walking in, which I have to say is like, definitely a very like intense feeling. Like, I don't know how baseball players do it. Like, just having people cheering is a like, and hearing it all echoes wild. Um, you know, setting up the fields at championship, and just, you know, looking down from one end of the building and just seeing all of the fields and everything set up. I mean, it's a completely different experience. You know, the regional system, for example, the picture on the bottom right is actually a regional, the Monterrey regional, last year. And, you know, just like I said, getting to meet people and getting to meet people, teams, just everybody, and volunteers, everybody that's involved, and building relationships. You know, I think, you know, every FTA, if you sit down and talk to them for 5 to 10 minutes when they're not busy running around or fixing a robot or something, they'll tell you a bunch of stories about, you know, what happened, what they've seen, what they've experienced. And I think that's what keeps a lot of that alive, keeps us all kind of working towards stuff. You know, the oh, and also, you know, of course, because we're Kit of Parts sponsors, we have, you know, some of the booth stuff and fun stuff like that. I would definitely say that becoming an FTA was a huge experience for me, because it just opened my eyes to everything that has to happen at an event. Just learning, where to put all this stuff together. In addition to, because at championship I'm running around like doing all of the work stuff, you know, doing all of the robotic stuff, FTAing at the same time. Like, it's crazy, but it's so much fun.
So I think that's awesome, and I'm really glad that you're part of this world, to like this robotics world and craziness that is just a fun time. And kind of bringing it back to the sensors and everything, what new sensors would you like to see put to use in the FRC world?
Ooh, that's a good question. You know, I would love to see a set of sensors or a combination of sensors, and that's actually leading into some of the stuff that I would be talking about, you know, in the next thing, if there is a next thing. You know, it's what we'll find, and what we're finding, and what companies all over the world are finding whenever they're making autonomous vehicles, is that there is no single solution that'll work. I would love to see a series of sensors, maybe, you know, a combination of LiDAR or radar or something like that, fused with, you know, our IMUs and those inertial sensors, and really like enabling like super autonomous robot control. I think that would be just all kinds of amazing. Yeah, of course, you'd have less action with the drivers and stuff moving around, but it would just be so much. Okay, maybe not so much cooler. It would be a lot of fun, I think, to see those robots actually like completing objectives autonomously. I know a couple teams are already playing with it. It's just more widespread use, I think, would be awesome. Some actually the Zebra. So, for example, the Zebra motion system, but letting teams use that data like on the field in real time, that would also be really cool.
That would be pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh yeah.
what kind of advice do you have for students that are in the FIRST programs that want to be FTAs one day?
I would say work on your CSA skills. I think that at least I fall in the camp of like, CSA first. Once how a robot system works and kind of learn how to debug some of that, it basically makes running, and from what I've seen, it makes running events a lot easier and a lot smoother. I would also say, like, maybe it's a 180, but work on your communication skills. Like, there's a lot to be said about being able to talk to somebody, or being able to talk to a just any person, whether it be a parent, whether it be a student, or sometimes you have to do like, one right after the other, just situations come up, and learning how to talk through them, how to discuss them, how to make sure that everybody feels good about the decisions that are being made is key. It's absolutely key to being an FTA. The technical stuff and everything is just kind of, it's one of the things that you have to do, but the communication aspect is like, it's I don't want to say it's everything, but there's a lot of that. And then again, I tend to kind of get lazy leading up to build season, but really like getting your cardio up, and because you're standing up for like 12 hours, 14 hours, 18 hours a day, and lifting things and pushing things, and there's a lot of that as well. And it's kind of rough coming out of build season, with with eating junk food and just not sleeping, and it's good times.
That sounds so lovely. You never knew you had to do so much cardio for robotics.
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely, you do. There's oh, good.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, there's I think every year as well, like I start learning, like all these little tips and tricks, and I think amongst the FTAs we kind of share like, hey, have you tried like this you got to get this water bottle, or like I think the latest craze was like compression socks, which okay, I guess it works for some people. Having I've learned you should pack both pants and shorts, because you never know whether it's going to be really hot and really humid while you're setting up and they don't turn on the AC, or whether it's going to be really cold and you don't want to wear shorts when it's really cold. Because I grew up in Texas. It's warm. It's not cold.
But that cold is a transition period, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I just, the guys up in Wisconsin, like I have no idea how they do it. That is just, nope, way too cold.
And is there anything new that you can tell us? Anything new like coming up in the technology that like maybe you're working on that you can tell us about, or is it all top secret?
Well, I don't want to say it's all top secret, but as far as FRC is concerned, I would put it this way: we're always trying to make stuff smaller and more integrated, and I would love to have every team have our sensors, because going back to what I was saying earlier, that I would love to see like the zebra tracking thing. If we could make sure that every robot had our sensor in it, then you could do really, really cool stuff like, take whatever position data the field can give us and then fuse it together and get a really good estimate as to where your robot is and where it's pointing. That would be really cool. I would love to see that. I am definitely trying to see what else we can put in there, anything else that we can add to the kit of parts. Which actually, that is an open invitation. If anybody has any idea as to what they would love to see in the kit of parts, what they would love to have us look at or try, let us know. We'd be happy to, if anything, just take a look at it.
Is there an email that you want us to share those suggestions or thoughts to?
I believe it's FRC FRC support at analog.com. Yep, that's what it is. FRC support at analog.com, and that'll go to myself and I think 2 or 3 other people. And we monitor it regularly. If there's anything, if you have any trouble with our sensors using it, if you want to use them for an off-season project or anything like that, shoot us a message. We would love to have you guys, or have anybody really, message us.
Speaking of off-season, since we're kind of in a weird situation right now, do you have any suggestions for teams that are trying to learn about sensors during this time?
So you cut off for a second, but I think you said, do I suggest having them learn about stuff?
Yeah, how do you suggest learning about sensors and stuff?
So I would definitely, if you have one of our sensors or really anybody's sensor and readily available, definitely pick it up and either get it communicating with RoboRio or with an Arduino. And I've got sensor code and stuff up there on GitHub. If you just Google it, you'll definitely be able to find that and really just play around with the sensor and try to understand what data it gives you. And I think we'll try to do our best to fill in the gaps with the documentation. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Sounds great. And one last thing, do you have any last thoughts, or do you have a favorite first memory that you want to share with us?
Ooh, geez. I would say, I'm going to say favorite first memory. We've done, amongst the FTAs, it is amazing, and it's always a thing that happens. We always, put together pranks, and we always put together, do silly things, and like we've dragged couches onto the practice field, and we've definitely stolen cargo, and just kind of threw it around, and just really silly things, zip tying things, filling a field full of fuel, just stuff like that happens. It's just there's a list of just really silly and borderline not smart things that we've done.
Well, it sounds like a fun time, and just thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk with us today. I mean, it's really cool what you do, and really cool to hear about just the different things that are possible with sensors and just technology in general. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
And I would like to take a moment now to once again thank our sponsor, Canon. And this is our last session for May. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.